Dear colleagues, unfortunately I couldn't make it to Brussels this time round due to urgent parliamentary work, so I am linking with you via this video clip. We all believe that celebrating annual events is always a good opportunity to take stock of where we stand on the particular issue we are remembering, giving us also the opportunity to react and plan accordingly. Also, celebrating such events is a clear declaration that we have not yet achieved all that we set out to do, and that the agenda is still work in progress. That is why we need to remain focused, committed, and engaged in the disability sector. Over the past 3 years, despite being a small country, Malta put the disability sector very high on the agenda, and our policies and initiatives are paying dividends. This was supported by a long list of specific laws, focusing also on the nature of particular disabilities, enshrining the human rights of individual cohorts, thus ensuring accessibility and inclusion. We strengthened support services and created new ones to ensure a person-centered approach. We have implemented specialized training programs towards employability, which led to attain during the past year alone a considerable increase of persons with disabilities within the labour market. All projects and positive results stemmed out of our commitment to establish a society that is factually fair and just to all, whatever the abilities and support required. Determination and tireless consultation with all involved, including the beneficiaries themselves, have been the key factors for our achievements. And to this effect, Malta enacted a legislation that saw the engagement and involvement of persons with disability actively engaged in the decision-making process. Recently, we also enacted specific legislation for people who are on the autistic spectrum and also addressed the deaf agenda. Our determination and commitment towards the disability agenda was further consolidated by the legislation fully transposing the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities into Maltese legislation to make it directly enforceable in the Maltese courts. We are equally determined to share with and transpose our experience in this and other social solidarity sectors to all member states of the European Union during Malta's presidency in the first 6 months of 2017. Indeed, it is with this sense of achievement that we look forward to further enshrine social inclusion as a major endeavour of the Maltese presidency of the Council of the European Union. One of the main points raised by the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability is the issue of accessibility. Accessibility is indeed indispensable for social inclusion, especially against the background of demographic aging and the digital transition. The stark reality is that it is expected that by 2020, 120 million Europeans will experience a degree of disability. This increases the need for accessibility in everyday life, and the Maltese presidency will follow up on the work on the legislative proposals carried out by the Dutch and Slovak presidencies regarding the much-awaited Accessibility Act. Conscious about the challenges and the legitimate expectations, the Maltese presidency will also work to reach a general approach on the proposed legislation. In Council next year, Malta will also be pushing forward with discussions on 2 proposals related to the Marrakesh Treaty, one a directive and the other a regulation, work on which has already begun in the Working Party. The Marrakesh Treaty, which aims to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled, was signed on behalf of the European Union in April 2014. Mention also has to be made of the European Pillar of Social Rights, the first preliminary outline of which is currently undergoing public consultation, with the final version expected to be published in the early part of 2017. This is because disability is one of the 20 policy domains one finds in the pillar. The social models across the European Union have effectively contributed to the prosperity and progress of our society. The fundamental elements of our growth as a model have been several: addressing inequalities and social disadvantage and opening up opportunities for all to participate in society and economy, however crucial they are, is also applicable to persons with disability. If we are to take this agenda forward, where all persons with disability are really and truly active citizens, where children with disability have a voice, where people with disability can determine their agenda, then we need to make a concerted effort to keep engaging this community in our social policy design. During its important role within the Union in the coming months, Malta will endeavour to work in favour of such objectives. I believe that what we need to do at this stage is to make sure that we design communities around three important principles. The first is that we recognise that this debate needs to be encapsulated in a human rights debate. Secondly, that we design our communities around universal design. And finally, we need to be guided by the UN CRPD. The sector around the EU has seen great improvements, and this is evidenced by the commitment and the richness of the European Disability Strategy 2020. That is why the EU has a renewed commitment to a barrier-free society, where we need to reinforce our social commitment, strengthen our social welfare services, and develop our educational services. Three key sectors that are crucial in taking the sector forward. If we want our communities to grow around the notion of inclusivity, to mark our society by a drive towards social cohesion, we need to start by creating a level playing field for all. Children are indeed ambassadors of social justice, the best diplomats when communicating a message, the envoys of good news and emissaries of social well-being. Looking up to children is the way forward, and getting them engaged in our public policy is the next courageous thing that the EU should be doing. The Maltese government, for one, has been already working along these lines. Social inclusion has and will always be our final goal. Achieving these goals is a matter of constant commitment, and time will tell whether we have all, individually or collectively, been on the right side of history in these first years of the third millennium. Amongst us and around us, there are millions of persons with disabilities who are keenly observing and awaiting our act, and not merely listening to our eloquent speeches.